Oceangate, Stockton Rush, Narcissist, Part 1. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. On the 18th of June this year, Titan, a submersible operated by American tourism and expeditions company Oceangate, imploded during its descent in the North Atlantic Ocean, about 370 nautical miles off the coast of Newfoundland, Canada. It carried 5 people and was part of a tourist expedition to view the wreck of the Titanic. Communication with Titan was lost 1 hour and 45 minutes into its dive, and authorities were alerted when it failed to resurface at the scheduled time later that day. After a search lasting nearly 80 hours, a remotely operated underwater vehicle discovered a debris field containing parts of Titan, about 500 meters, 1,600 feet, from the bow of the Titanic. The search area was informed by the United States Navy's sonar detection of an acoustic signature consistent with an implosion around the time communications with the submersible ceased, suggesting the pressure hull had imploded while Titan was descending, resulting in the instantaneous deaths of all 5 occupants. Those occupants were Shahzada Dawood, aged 48, a Pakistani-British businessman of the Dawood Hercules Corporation and philanthropist; Suleiman Dawood, 19, the son of Shahzada Dawood. He was a student at the University of Strathclyde. Hamish Harding, age 58, a British businessman, aviator and space tourist. He had previously descended into the Mariana Trench, broken the Guinness World Record for the fastest circumnavigation of the Earth, and flown into space in 2022 on Blue Origin NS-21. Stockton Rush, age 61, an American submersible pilot, engineer and businessman. He was the chief executive and co-founder of Oceangate. Paul-Henri Narcissist, a former French Navy commander, diver, submersible pilot, member of the French Institute for Research and Exploitation of the Sea, and director of underwater research for EM Group and RMS Titanic, Inc., that owns salvage rights to the wreckage site. Narcissist led more than 35 expeditions to the wreck, supervised the recovery of thousands of artifacts, and was widely considered the leading authority on the wreck site. Oceangate Incorporated is an American privately owned company in Everett, Washington that provides crewed submersibles for tourism, industry, research, and exploration. The company acquired a submersible vessel, Antipodes, and later built 2 of its own, Cyclops 1 and Titan. In 2021, Oceangate began taking paying tourists in the Titan to visit the wreck of the Titanic. As of 2022, the price to be a passenger on an Oceangate expedition to the Titanic shipwreck was $250,000 per person. On June the 18th, 2023, Titan imploded. Titan, known as Cyclops 2 until 2018, was the second submersible designed and built by Oceangate. The first privately owned submersible with an intended maximum depth of 4,000 meters, 13,000 feet. It was also the first completed crewed submersible that used a hull constructed of titanium and carbon fiber composite materials, as most other human-carrying submersibles are designed with an all-metal pressure vessel. As we shall see in further parts, criticism has arisen with regard to the use of carbon fiber rather than the use of titanium, which might suggest the cutting of corners, greed, and a possible somewhat laissez-faire and flippant attitude to safety. On June the 18th, 2023, Oceangate lost contact with Titan during its first dive in 2023 to the Titanic. Loss of contact had occurred multiple times during previous test and tour dives. Does this suggest that this was a rather ramshackle approach, or was this simply one of the natural hazards that would be occurred and nothing to worry about. As a consequence of those previous loss of contacts, Oceangate didn't alert authorities until the submersible was overdue for its return. A massive international search and rescue operation ended on June 22nd, 2023, when debris from Titan, which had been destroyed in a catastrophic implosion, was discovered. Accordingly, Stockton Rush joins the unenviable list of inventors who have been killed by their inventions. Other individuals on this list include Sylvester Roper. He died of a heart attack during a public speed trial in 1896. William Nelson, a General Electric employee, he invented a new way to motorize bicycles. He then fell off his prototype bike during a test run and died. Francis Stanley was killed while driving a Stanley steam automobile. He drove his car into a woodpile while attempting to avoid farm wagons. Otto Littenthal died from injuries sustained in a crash of his hang glider in 1896. Percy Pilcher died after crashing his glider, having been prevented from demonstrating his powered aircraft. He died in 1899. Henry Smolinski was killed during a test flight of the AV Mitsar, a flying car based on the Ford Pinto and the sole product of the company he founded. He died in 1973. Michael Dacre died in 2009 after a crash that occurred while testing his flying taxi device. Marie Curie died as a consequence of her long-term exposure to radiation, some of which was from the devices she created, passing away in 1934. John Day, an English carpenter and wheelwright, died during a test of his experimental diving chamber in 1774. Thomas Andrews died in 1912. He was managing director and head of the drafting department of the shipbuilding company Harland & Wolff in Belfast. As the naval architect in charge of the plans for the Titanic, he was travelling on board that vessel during her maiden voyage when the ship hit an iceberg on the 14th of April 1912. There are, of course, other individuals in industrial settings, chemical settings, rocketry, railway, publicity and entertainment and medical that were bold inventors who ended up dying as a consequence of their own invention, killing them. Stockton Rush now joins that list. But what is the status of Stockton Rush? Is he a fearless adventurer? Is he a determined pioneer, an ambitious inventor, a foolhardy mercenary, a self-absorbed, dismissive, arrogant individual? Or might he be a narcissist? I'm going to examine the evidence to determine what he is. Those of you familiar with my work will understand that the way that this is done is by looking at a range of evidence from a variety of sources showing behavior over a sustained period of time. I look for various indicators. I look, for instance, at does he show a sense of entitlement? What about emotional empathy? Is it evident? Is it cognitive? Or is it completely absent? Does he show accountability or a failure to have that? Is there evidence of grandiosity? Does he engage in magical thinking? What about haughty behaviours? Do we see manipulations? How does he respond with regard to boundaries? Do we see aspects of the narcissistic dynamic? A lot of the evidence relates to his behaviours in and around his company, Oceangate, and the development of the submersible. There's little information about his personal life and his interactions, for instance, with his wife and his children. Nevertheless, the determination must be made by scrutinizing a significant amount of evidence over a sustained period of time to reach an assessment as to what Mr. Rush may well have been in terms of determining, is he empathic? Is he normal? Was he narcissistic, but not a narcissist, or was he indeed a narcissist? I have seen, in the course of the gathering of this evidence, many people who have already reached a judgment as to what they believe that he is. This goes far deeper in terms of making a determination. So join me, H.G. Tudor, as I examine the evidence and ask the question, what is Stockton Rush?